It was Graham Potter's first Premier League game in charge of West Ham, and the changes were evident for all to see. No more so than in the pressing. It felt completely different than it has done under Lopetegui, Jack, and we directly got 2 goals from it.
Yeah, much better. It's great to see West Ham pressing a little bit. It's been a while. I know we got very excited all the way back against Leverkusen, and that was the last time I think we really pressed well as a unit and caused an opposition lots of problems by being intense. And it's a good way to generate a bit of togetherness in the squad, to generate a bit of belief, and to generate belief in the ground, and get the fans on side as well, and create some kind of atmosphere. And the atmosphere wasn't amazing in the Fulham match, but it goes some way to rebuilding that and to getting kind of home form back together and make it a difficult place to come again. So really good to see the team pressing with some intensity once more.
Yeah, and what was really interesting to me is when I looked at the PPDA figures, which, if you're not aware, passes per defensive action, the higher the number, the more it means your opposition are passing before you actually do something defensive. So you want a lower figure means more intense, which is a bit confusing, but it makes sense. When you look at the number against Fulham, it was 15. But if you look at Lopetegui's last game against City, it was 9. So we were more intense against City, yet in this game, like I said, it directly led to 2 goals.
Yeah, and I think one of the main reasons for that is if you look at the first 15 minutes of the match against Fulham, our press wasn't actually that good, and we've recorded an 82 PPDA, which is a hell of a whopping total. Loads and loads of passes for Fulham in that period, and I think we all felt that in the ground. The first 25 minutes of the match, Fulham were quite good, and Silva was furious afterwards, really, that they hadn't been able to convert more on that impressive first 25 minutes and generate more opportunities, score goals, and convert that dominance into a positive result. And yeah, I think we wanted to press. I think that's clear. It's not that we didn't want to try and be intense from the start against Fulham, but there were some little things that needed to be tinkered with to actually make it effective. And if you look at the way that we pressed right from the start against Fulham, you can see actually that the front four, Soler, Souček, Paquetá and Kudus, are all kind of like locked on somewhat man-to-man across the pitch. So Soler with Castagna, Souček with Andersen, Paquetá with Bassi, and Kudus with Robinson. And actually what that led to were lots of situations, yes, where we might have been able to stop them from progressing. We might have been able to make a tackle and turn them around. This is a good situation where Edson Alvarez does that. But also lots of situations where we weren't actually able to get the numbers forward to support them in the press. And you get Andreas Pereira or other players turning in deep in the pitch and being able to fire the ball forwards and get them into the final third. I think we defended relatively well in these situations. In this specific example, Mavropanos gets across on the cover and it goes out for a throw. But we weren't seeing the kind of situations that then followed where we were actually able to force high turnovers, generate chances from the way that we pressed, which I think was really important in this match, given how many forwards we were missing, and actually using the way that we defend as a way to generate chances was a really good alternative way of looking at the match and a way of generating advantage within the game. And it was a small tweak, but a really crucial tweak, and one that was completely different to the kind of thing we saw under Lopetegui, and we'll explore exactly what the difference is. And the first thing that changed is that Wan-Bissaka, instead of being deeper with Alex Iwobi, was released forward to press Anthony Robinson. You can see now that Kudus has gone inside with Bassi, Paquetá's over with Andersen, Soler still in theory with Castagna. He's actually deeper in this moment, and then Souček back out instead of on that very first line of the press in the second line against Pereira and Lukic. So Wan-Bissaka goes high, and then comes the big difference, which is that Konstantinos Mavropanos was released to support him instead of being stuck deep with Maximilian Kilman. So he comes out and goes with Iwobi. You can see us really now committing very aggressively to the press once we forced them down onto this right-hand side. Mavro so high. And then you can see Souček and Alvarez lock on to Pereira and Lukic. Mavropanos there, still very high, supporting should the ball go out to Iwobi. Kudus with Bassi, Paquetá out onto the keeper, and Alvarez's jump is able to force that blind pass from Pereira. Soler is able to make the interception. Great risk taking from him, and he's able to score. And Potter gives a big thumbs up to Edson for making that jump and for forcing the Fulham mistake and generating a goal ultimately for us. But a really good moment of team pressure, the team working together as a unit to force a mistake out of the opposition. And where that's really different to what we saw against Leicester, and we can see this crystallised actually in Edson Alvarez. So right at the start of the Leicester game, a game where we had a lot of chances, and Lopetegui came away feeling quite, I think, almost like Silva did in this game. Like, we were unfortunate to not win this match. And if you look at Edson Alvarez here, you can see actually we're deeper in the pitch. We're not pressing so high up the pitch. But Edson Alvarez goes alone past Boubakary Samare out towards Yannick Vestergaard in this example. There isn't that team collective approach of other players coming up to support him. You haven't got defenders coming forward with him. It's just Alvarez alone trying to chase the ball. We saw this a lot under Lopetegui. Single players making decisions. Right, I'm going to go and chase the ball. I'm going to try and create some pressure. And actually the ball goes straight past him into Bilal El-Khanous, who's able to turn, fire the ball in behind for Jamie Vardy, who gets through and scores the opening goal of that game. And instead of what we see in the Fulham match, where we have a positive game state, we're ahead, we get the first goal, we get the second goal, and we're able to then defend with the lead. We're actually chasing from the very, very start of the game against Leicester. And that was the case in so many games under Lopetegui. In the Leicester match, throughout it, really, we saw the same situations occurring. Here you can see again the intent to try and step high up the pitch and try and create some pressure, but completely different to Fulham, where you see loads and loads of players forward supporting the press. Here you can just see it's just a few, and then there's a big gap in the middle. You can already see it on this first screenshot, huge big gap in the middle of the pitch, and Hermansen sees it, plays the ball over the top, and they're straight into, this time it's Buonanotte turning, and you can see the defensive line there completely disconnected from the pressing unit, huge amount of space in the centre to turn. They play it wide to McAteer, and then it's only one pass inside to El-Khanous, who's able to score the second of the game. And this happened all the way through to Lopetegui's last match in charge against Man City. Another example, Paquetá this time, individual pressure. Sofal could come forward to support, but instead he goes back to be with the defence. The defensive line, again, completely disconnected from the front players who have gone to try and instigate some kind of pressure. Danny Ings, I think it's Niclas Füllkrug in this example, who's even further forward, trying to press, again, alone without the support from the rest of the team. And City quite easily able to progress into Savinho here, who turns in exactly the same kind of gaping space in the centre of the pitch, carries forward, one pass through to Haaland, and we all know what that led to. So, and ultimately that's what ended up getting Lopetegui sacked, that kind of complete disconnect between the defensive line and the forward line, and pressing as individuals rather than pressing as a collective.
Yeah, and I guess it makes sense when you show the example from the Fulham game of Mavropanos even getting involved in that far forward. It's a whole unit as opposed to individuals. So I guess if we were to talk about that first goal against Fulham, because I think that's a perfect example, what would that have looked like under Lopetegui?
Yeah, so if we go over to the tack board, actually, it's a nice way of looking at it. It really crystallises how big the difference is. So at the moment that Pereira plays that blind pass across to Castagna, this is kind of what the team looks like in that situation. Paquetá forward onto Bernd Leno, Kudus onto Bassi, as we described. Our midfielders, Souček and Alvarez, jumping onto Pereira and Lukic. There's no real options. He has to try and play that pass wide to Castagna. And partly also that's because of the pressure that's come on this right-hand side with Mavropanos forward onto Iwobi, Wan-Bissaka forward onto Robinson. And we've taken that risk at the back with Kilman 1v1 with Raul Jimenez, rather than always maintaining a 2v1 against the striker, too concerned about should they be able to go direct into that player, and then leaving Harry Wilson on the opposite side of the pitch free, taking risks in the way that you defend. If we imagine what it might have looked like under Lopetegui, where we wanted to keep that security on the back line, we wanted to make sure that we still had enough numbers back should they get through to be able to defend, we can see that it probably would have looked something a little bit more like this, with Kilman further across, Emerson further across, and then Mavropanos and Wan-Bissaka all the way back, Rodriguez alone in midfield. And you can immediately see, rather than Pereira maybe having to play that blind pass in there, the pressure is going to be so much less effective. And if they get an opportunity to turn and play into Iwobi, Robinson, Smith Rowe, Wilson, we're immediately in a really bad situation. Even though we have more numbers under Lopetegui, deeper, they're so connected from the rest of the team, in fact, probably even be something like this, deeper even, that it becomes very easy to find players in huge amounts of space between the pressing players and the defensive players to turn and drive up the pitch. So completely different, massive improvement. And I think in terms, like we said, about building that belief and building belief just in the players as well as individuals, backing them in this way and saying, no, you go and make those commitments, you go and make that pressure, and the team structure will allow you to be successful and to have belief in them being able to execute those actions successfully to create upside for the team. I think that as a player just will make you feel 10 times taller on the pitch, 10 times bigger on the pitch, so much more dominant on the pitch. And again, it's about compactness. If you look at the profiles we have in the middle, Rodriguez and Edson Alvarez, Rodriguez covering that amount of space might be quite difficult. But if you're nice and high up the pitch and there's no real room to operate for the Fulham players, now we're looking at much tighter gaps for these players to make jumps up to support and use their aggression in a way that actually helps the team, rather than us suffering because maybe their lack of speed causes us problems defending in transition.
Yeah, exactly, and helps the individuals in that system as well. Someone like Guido Rodriguez, who we saw struggle because he was being asked to cover way too much space, and now he can cover a smaller space and it's way more effective, and everyone does it as a unit. And it is that togetherness, the confidence that it brings for everyone. You only have to look at the celebrations, people celebrating stopping goals together, people celebrating goals together at the end of the game, Paquetá and Graham Potter having a laugh and a joke together. And it's that belief that translates into results over time. It's not something that will always work. Leaving that, in this example, for example, Wilson being by himself out wide, yeah, sometimes you're going to come up against a team who are really, really good, and they're going to be able to hit him perfectly, inch perfect, and all of a sudden you're going to be in a bit of trouble. But actually, in those moments, you've given the players the belief. You've given someone like Max Kilman going 1v1 the belief to do it, Mavropanos stepping up the belief to do it, Edson Alvarez, whoever it is, the belief to deal with those situations. They're more likely to be able to deal with those situations than if they're double guessing themselves and doing things individually as opposed to as a whole team.
Exactly. It was an imperfect game. There were many situations in the match where Fulham will feel that they could have done a little bit better, could have scored goals, could have finished chances. But it's an incredible platform to start with, and gets you that buy-in from the players, gets you that buy-in from the fans, makes everyone believe that there's really something here to build on. And if you get, as we've been speaking about all week, really, if you get that determination, those effort levels out of the group by trusting them in this way, then you're in a great place to start with, and you can only really go up from there.
Exactly. And if you want to go up from there, patreon.com/analyticsunited is a place you can go. We've obviously covered the game in full on the breakdown on this very channel, but we have an extended edition called Extra Time that happens over there. We have our post-match Q&A where we went into loads more details on your questions about what actually happened on the game, as opposed to so much more. For example, previewing the Crystal Palace game. Check it out, patreon.com/analyticsunited. Link in the description below. But Jack, thank you very much. Appreciate you as always. And we'll be back for the breakdown next week. So subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video. We'll see you then. Cheers, everyone. Bye.